Good evening, dear students and colleagues who are here. I trust that we have all survived a bit of a colder winter, I think a day or two ago, especially those who are in Gauteng, I think other regions also where there was a bit of snow. But welcome again to the session of today. As you have seen, I think we had to change the dates, but I think my colleagues did communicate with you earlier that we'll have our session today. And the session today, before I just cover the contents that are already on the slides now that you can see. My name is Karabo Shali. I'm mainly from the School of Interdisciplinary Research and Graduate Studies within the College of Graduate Studies. One of the recently professor who joined late last year. And once again, welcome. And I'm going to take you through the process for today. Allow me then for today just after that introduction to switch off my camera so that you can just be able to focus on that. I'll get back to my camera towards the Q&A session towards the end. With that, colleagues, the session for today is mainly on developing the doctorateness of your work, which is part 2. I believe that part 1 has been covered already, but part of this will cover the approaches and skill development in preparation of a monograph as well as article-based thesis. And as part of that, we'll also touch base on what we have touched base on, just to recap in terms of the Viva voce process. And without wasting much time, what I'm going to cover in my presentation, in line with what I've just said, is mainly to try to understand what is doctorateness, and also try to reflect on the doctoral mindset, reflecting on the graduate attributes nationally, which have been set up by the Council of Higher Education, as well as those international, just to try to compare and see how they differ. And then on that, after that, I'll just touch base on the monograph itself, as well as the article-based thesis, and then I will conclude, just to recap, as I said, on the Viva voce, which we have done as part of the presentation of the proposal, but in line with this one. Now, without waste of time, let's look into the term doctorateness. Probably some of you have heard that, yes, you are doing a doctorate, you are registered for a doctoral qualification, but however, the term doctorateness, it's more of a recent term that has been used in the past, I would say maybe 15, 20 years. It was never there before. And it's more talking about, mainly it has been used in the education literature, but it's more to talk about the quality that is required for a doctoral award or a doctoral qualification. And this is more where you are trying to reflect what you have learned, your kind of like your caliber or the character or something like that, depending on which word you can use. But what is also important, one needs to understand what are the factors necessary for demonstrating doctorateness. If it's something that you can be able to, maybe measure or something like that, what are those things? We'll touch base on things like that. And another question also, is doctorateness acquired by a student? Just like when you are done with your master's or your doctorate studies, you have acquired a qualification, but is doctorateness something that can be acquired? And I think that one is very simple, because this is more of how you behave, how you act, or your qualities after that. The attributes that you will show. It's not something that you can say now this person, has a doctorateness. It depends on what you do, how you behave yourself, the way you do things. That is how it's going to be measured. So the question then comes to say whether can its achievement be measured by a scale? And I will touch base on some of the attributes I talked about to reflect that, yes, depending on what you set as a scale, there are some things that you can try to check with. Now, there are two things that you need to check yourself out. You need to check. Is this something that is it about the product or is it about the process? Literature has shown that doctorateness, it's about both of them, about the product and process. With regard to the part of the process, firstly, it's about you, preparing your future career. That is the main thing of when we talked about doctorateness in terms of its process. Secondly, it's about producing the next generation of researchers and academics. Remember, you attaining a doctoral qualification is not only about your job, mainly in terms of our, higher education systems and also CHE. It has always been to try to increase the number of those who have obtained doctoral qualifications to be able to prepare others for the future. The other part, yes, it might be the issue of preparing you for industry or even other employments, depending where you are working. As as well as career development in line with what you talked about, the future career. Also, is sometimes people are studying to satisfy their own personal curiosity, some for intellectual interest, while some they want to prove their, a point. But I normally say you must never do a qualification to prove a point, rather make it to prove your own self, not a point to somebody else, because then you might have reasons for that. In terms of the product part of it, you will probably produce knowledge that is new. Remember, as we touched before, we said for doctoral qualifications, you have to come with something new. You are contributing, you are pushing the boundaries of knowledge. You are adding something original to the body of science or the body of the field that you are in terms of your area of study. And also, depending on whether is it in the sciences, like your science and technology, or whichever field, whether it's in the social sciences, it's also about generating knowledge transfer to the industry. Sometimes I know the words knowledge transfer, we normally talk about it mainly the sciences, where you talk about science and technology, but also in the social sciences or humanities or education, you can still also come with something new that you can transfer to industry or even government, depending where you are. Now, with that at the back of your mind, let's also check, how do you know if research is for you? Yes, you are already here. You are done with your master's, you have researched for your doctorate, that's why you are here. It might sound like it's a bit late, but if you don't have some of these things that you are having at the back of your mind, then it's time to start thinking about that. Firstly, you need to have an inquisitive mind and be a critical thinker. That is expected. Remember, we're talking about doctorateness. So part of being, qualifying as a doctor later, the doctorateness part will reflect all these things. Secondly, you are a kind of person who likes to understand how things are done. You don't just take things for granted. You want to know, why is this happening? Why is it done that way? And thirdly, you also want to identify, or you like identifying problems for whatever. You identify problems to provide solutions. There's a say that for every problem out there, there's always a solution. So at the level where you are now, with the interest of going for a doctoral studies and doing that, it means you want to solve problems, whether your own around your area or for the community or for the industry, but there's a problem or there are problems that you want to solve. Also, part of this, you have done some research, undergraduate level, and you might have loved that or liked it. That's why you are now doing your doctorate. So there's something that triggered your interest. It might be a challenge that you picked up at undergraduate or at master's, or a challenge that you might have picked up where you are staying that gave you that interest or the energy to go for that. The other issue also for other people is more philosophical reasons, where there are people who are always dreaming about some things. They want to change the world. Like we have said, where there are problems, if you want to provide solutions, it means you are a dreamer. You want to change the world. You want to have good things that will solve people's problems and leave also a legacy, either for yourself or your family or for people that you are working with. Now, part of doctorateness, as you talked about, there are qualities that you need in line with what we have just talked about in the previous slide now. Firstly, you need to be passionate. You need to be self-motivated. Remember, doing PhD is a life-changing decision. Some people, they normally say when you conduct a PhD, it's like you are running a Comrade marathon. That is almost 90 kilometers of running from either Durban to Pietermaritzburg or the opposite of that direction. So it's about life-changing decision. And you need to be sure that this is the path that you want to follow in life. Yes, as people, we always have doubts or questions in our lives, but once you are in this direction of going for a doctoral qualification, you need to be clear of that. The other part also is you need to have perseverance as well as self-confidence. And we are not talking here about selfishness. We talk about self-confidence. You're going to have some challenges in between, because remember, sometimes you'll submit to your supervisors. They will return the document to you. In the olden days, you'll get red pens all over your submission. Nowadays, even on online systems, either through Word or either PDF, your supervisor will have some comments. The first time, you'll probably have a lot of comments. The same that have happened at master's level. But over time, though that becomes part and parcel of your life, you'll know you need to persevere. At the same time, you'll have papers that you want to publish. After you have done the work for almost a year or two, when you submit a paper, then the journal might reject that paper based on the comments that will come from the reviewers. That says that you don't have to give up. You must trust in yourself and continue to soldier on, because it's part and parcel of doctoral studies. Also, the issue of independence. This is important because this is your qualification. This is your study. This is your PhD. You are the one who must know what you want, and you need to know how to do it. And that only happens through you studying more and reading more. Lastly, it's the part of hard work and intelligence. I like to emphasize more on hard work. Yes, we know there are people who are intelligent, by birth, that those who are intelligent because of reading and all that, but I prefer to use the word hard work. Where you are now at your doctoral qualification studies now, you need to commit to hard work. Without hard work, you won't make it. You can be intelligent, but hard work, I think that's the one that will be the best one for you. And also, you must remember that, every now and then, there are some of the challenges that will come. No matter how smart you are, or how good you are, or how hardworking you are, you will face challenges in this level, because it's a learning curve. You are learning. And remember, as you have said, this is a life-changing decision that you have made to continue your studies. Now, part of what you have said, you need to take ownership of your PhD. That's part of a doctorateness that we have talked about. No one is going to be responsible for you to get your qualification. There's nobody. Your supervisor is just there to assist. It's your own responsibility. And remember, every college, depending which college you are in, whether it's education or it's KS or whichever college you are registered in, they are giving you the opportunities, but everything is up to you. We are here to try to give you some of the pointers, try to give you some presentations on quantitative studies, qualitative, or how to prepare your literature on theoretical aspects. Whatever we present here, we are just trying to give you the opportunities, try to assist you, but you are the person to then work throughout all that. I have just put here a picture, it's a comic picture that just reflect to say that although you'll be working with your supervisor, when the supervisor talks to you, he or she will be talking about us or we. But remember, you are the one who will be doing all the work. The supervisor are just there to guide you, to help you, but the work has to be done by yourself. So when your supervisor says to you, we will do 1, 2, 3, you don't have to wait and then wait for the supervisor. You are the one who are going to initiate and continue the work. That's part of being having that aspect you talked about of doctorateness. Now, the part of doing research, in addition to what you have said now, you need to be proactive. You can't wait for a supervisor to push you. Remember, you are not at first year, you are not at matric level, or maybe grade 10 or grade whatever, or those who are old enough, you'll probably know about the standards. You are not there anymore. You are now where you need to push yourself. It's important also to continue reading papers. Firstly, this will develop your critical thinking, and you will identify both and the weak points of your work or of what others have done. Remember, we have mentioned in some of the presentation before that your study now or your work is about identifying gaps, especially the part of literature review. As I've said before, your supervisors are just there to guide, to assist you, but the work depends up to you. How you finish and how soon you finish, that is up to you. And remember, your supervisors will guide you on which papers to look for, which journals, but after that, it's on you. The first time they might guide you on which conference to attend. After that, you are the one now to start looking for conferences that are in line with your study. As I've said, reading every now and then is going to be important. You can't have a week pass by without you reading an article or two. Some people, they normally even say, read almost few papers or few journals or so, or papers from the journals, 3 to 4 per week. Because remember, now this is part of your work. Yes, even if you are still working, you are doing part-time, but make that a point that you are going to read every now and then. And sometimes it's good to read outside your area, because it will take your mind outside your scope of work so that you can relax your mind on what you are dealing with. And then when you come back, you are more refreshed. As well as also making sure that, depending on your kind of study, you follow technology, what is happening. Some of you, it might be about politics, it might be about new developments. You need to be updated of what's happening. And what is interesting as well, don't just always wait for your supervisor to tell you about new things that are happening, or some of your colleagues. Also, be the one to initiate and look for things that are interesting and share with them to show that you have interest in what you are doing. Now, let's also look at the concept of doctorate quality. As I've mentioned about CHE, about DHET, and also probably some of you will be aware, around the year 2020 to 2021, there was an audit done at all universities, that means higher institutions of learning, where all the doctoral qualifications were assessed. The reasons for that, it might have been the issue of quality that was compromised somewhere, that I don't know on my side, but definitely it was something important. Now, and this was the first, audit that was done, especially for doctoral qualifications. Now, what is important, what came out was that a doctoral thesis, which has always been there from other universities, must demonstrate high level of research capability. And one must be able to make original academic contribution to the area that you are studying. And also, the work needs to be of the best quality or good quality to satisfy a peer review or a merit publication. Some institutions, it's a must that when you finish your doctoral qualifications, you need to publish a paper or two. Some, they say you need to submit something. And some, in our case, remember at UNISA, you need to present your doctorate once the examiners are done. That we'll touch base on later. And part of that is about your personal quality, your development and transformative, process. And, they always say that with education, if you are not transformed, then there's a problem. Now, I say with my own ways that after you have done with your doctoral qualification, if the doctorateness that we talked about does not transform you or you don't get transformed, then really something wrong has happened. And also part of that, remember, you're going to attain your qualification as part of the, the quality that you talk about. And you need also to present your results as an independent scholar and with competence. Those are some of the things. Now, some of the expectations in brief, these are in line with what we've touched on. Ethical standards, that's what you need to uphold through either your integrity of work or responsibility. You need to be seen as a person of, good morals, of integrity. That's part of ethical standards that you need to follow in terms of what UNISA has does, or if you have to apply for ethical clearance from any other body out there, you need to know that you are following all those principles. We have touched on the critical thinking. That's something that is expected of you as a doctoral candidate, through analyzing and through critiquing. Also having a deeper, thoroughness of your work and paying attention to detail. At your level, we don't expect to have, minor cosmetics when you submit the document. You are expected that these are now, simple errors that you will be sure that when you submit, these things will be cleared. Other part that we've talked about, which we'll touch base again on, the original contribution. Remember, at master's level, we have said in one of the presentations that at master's, you are there doing your master's to study and to learn and master the techniques or the processes. But at this level, you are no longer now doing that. You need to come with something, you need to contribute something new to your field, to the current knowledge. And as well you need to have your personal and professional growth through either presentations at conferences, also Viva voce that we'll talk about later, as well as publications. And also you need to be an expert in your area. Once you are done with your doctoral qualifications, people need to know that, yes, somebody like this, you are specializing either in food safety or maybe in politics, political science or something like that. You need to be known for something. And having said that, that doesn't take away the part of transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary that we talked about in one of the previous sessions. So, but you need to be a specialist or an expert in your area. Now, I'm going to reflect briefly on the national attributes in terms of what CHE has done, in line with also the audit that I talked about. But some of these things have always been there, but the audit also now emphasized more on this one. Firstly, it's about the broad knowledge. When you are here, you need to have a broad knowledge. A candidate needs to read more. You need to have a thorough and original contribution that you have achieved. Secondly, it's about the specialized knowledge. As I've said, because now remember you're becoming an expertise, you need to have a specialized knowledge and in-depth current knowledge of what is happening in your area or your project or research. Also, the issue number 3 is about the insight into related fields. Remember, because you are reading from literature, now you need to demonstrate your awareness and how your area of research relates with other fields or within your study area. Fourthly, we talked about the issue of ethical awareness. You need to know that you have to do everything ethically. But remember, we talked about the issue of integrity and issue of being responsible. So ethics is part and parcel of what you need to reflect as part of your doctorateness. And remember, under UNISA, for every project that you are submitting a proposal, you also have to go through the process of ethical clearance so that you are able to protect either the environment or the people or whatever you're going to do so that your work is conducted in an ethical manner. Number 5, it's about the original contribution. We cannot emphasize enough. At your level, remember, you need to show evidence of original and innovative thinking in research, as a researcher or in your research. Number 6 is about proper or appropriate methods. Remember, we have touched base and some of the sessions that you had before, they probably emphasized more on quantitative methods, qualitative methods, and some probably on mixed methods. Those aspects are part and parcel of, you know, the doctorateness that we are talking about, where you are now utilizing the methods that are well understood, that you understand what you have done, the kind of instruments you're going to use, the procedures that will be appropriate for your project. Number 7, it's about reflection and autonomy. Here it's about, you know, you have to conceptualize and then you have to reflect critically and work independently. These are part and parcel of what we talked about. You can't just always wait for other people. And remember, as you have said, part of this, you need to be able then to defend your work, either at a conference or also the Viva voce that we're going to talk about also. You need to be at that level as part of the doctoral qualification that you are able to defend your work. Part of that, number 8, is about communication and digital literacy. Yes, digital literacy here does not necessarily talk about how to use Word or things like that. It talks about the high level of that, where you are able to relate your research, you know, either online or you are able to analyze. This might also be as part of the methods that you are using through the kind of software you're going to use. Sometimes some people can use Atlas TI, some can use SPSS, some can use Excel, some can use MATLAB, depending on what you use or whatever methodology that you're going to use. But the literacy skill and communication will be part and parcel of that. Will you be able to communicate your work to others? Will you be able to present it? Lastly, the part of critical thinking for problem solving. Remember, at Masters, we said you were mastering, and part and parcel you were learning some of the aspects. But now here you need to reflect on the critical thinking. You need to demonstrate that you have the ability to conduct research critically so, and you have an analytical thinking, as you have touched with the others before. Now, I'm going to take you through some of the attributes that I've picked up internationally, just to compare with what we have in South Africa. The reason being is just to show you that this part of doctorateness that we're talking about, the skills, the qualities that we expect from you is not just only locally in South Africa, but the standard that CHE has set are benchmarked internationally. So we'll just touch base on, I will not dwell too much on some of them because they'll be more repetitive. Firstly, you need to have a comprehensive knowledge of the relevant theoretical frameworks. Remember, some of you, depending in the field that you are in, the theoretical frameworks are important in your field. Some in the sciences, you might not be talking too much about that, but those who are in the social sciences, the theoretical frameworks are quite important and something that you need to reflect on. The research methods, you need to understand them and apply them appropriately in line with the framework that we're using. And also, it will be able to understand the complex research problems and be able to then to provide solutions for that. What is important also, you need to know how to collect and synthesize complex data. That is followed by critical analysis of your results. Another part also, where you have questions, are you able to make some assumptions? Are you able to provide evidence and information to develop independent and critical thinking? That means you are no longer just, telling us what people have done, but you are now giving us ideas of what your work also contributes to the field of your area. It's important also the part of critical thinking. This is what we're going to emphasize more again. You are applying high level of research. Remember, you are not just doing what other people have done. It's a high level research, a deeper level, if one were to use that. Now, the other part is also the specialist knowledge that you need to. We talked about the issue of being an expert, so you need to reflect. So in line with what internationally people are looking for, that's exactly what CHE attributes are reflected. And every university, just like UNISA, will have our additional to our attributes, some of the values that are just reflecting of what is expected of a student. The other part also is about a global perspective. Some might refer to this as internationalization, but here is the issue of appreciating the global perspective in your area of study. Remember, part of your literature review, you have to then reflect on what is known internationally, what is known within Africa, probably South Africa, and then to your localized area. So it's more like a funnel. You are starting from the top with a bigger funnel, but streaming it until where your project focuses. So it's a part of reflecting on global perspective. Also, interdisciplinary perspective. Remember, I mentioned that in one of our sessions where we talked about disciplinary, we talked about multidisciplinary, we talked about interdisciplinary, we also talked about transdisciplinary. It's important as a doctoral candidate that you need to commit to intellectual openness and curiosity. It's not only about your area of study or about your field, but you need to be aware of your limits within your area that might be assisted by other disciplines with closer to your area or related to your area. So it's not only about a mono or just a single discipline. Have that perspective. Of course, you are here studying. It means that you love studying. That means a lifelong learning. At this level now, chances of you not wanting to study or reading after your doctoral qualification, they are limited. So this is a part and parcel that's gonna, get you to go on with reading more and studying more. Not necessarily for new qualifications, but to be curious about other things. The part of scholarship. If you remember one of the sessions that we had, we talked about the scholarship and research impact of your study. So the part of scholarship here talks about the commitment to the fundamental importance of the acquisition and development of knowledge and understanding. That is a scholarship we're reflecting about here. We talked about the issue of communication, that you need to now communicate your research. You need your arguments, your analysis, both orally and in writing are going to be reflected now in the as part of your doctorateness of your work. The other part that we talked about is critical thinking. I will not dwell too much on that because you've touched on. The one that I want to reflect on now, which our attributes are not reflecting it too much, is about the cultural understanding, especially the setup of South Africa. And mindful that we have other international students in our midst. But in terms of South Africa, for example, you also need to know at your level now, you need the knowledge and appreciation of different cultures. Just like as a student at UNISA, you remember you have different regions, you have different races with you that they might be your colleagues or your friends. So you need to have that understanding and the knowledge how to work with a multicultural area or people within your society. The same will apply at your work level. Once you attain your qualification, these are some of the things that are expected of you. The part of ethics, you have talked about that. I will not dwell too much on that. Then the other important part, depending on your area, is about environmental literacy. So as part of the doctorateness that we're talking about, you need to understand the principles that govern natural systems and the effects of human activity on these systems. And this is not only about those who are in the sciences, as I said, whether maybe you might think it's about people who are doing environmental sciences or environmental health or environmental management. It's not about that. Or those who are in engineering. Everyone who is going to attain a qualification at your level, you need to have something like that, environmental literacy as well. Information literacy, we have touched base on this one. This links more with also, computer literacy and things like that, being able to acquire the skills and organize and analyzing your data, your information, and being digitally active in terms of what you're doing. The part of research, obviously, because you are doing doctoral qualification, research at your level is of a high level, not just your maybe third year or fourth year or BTech or honors. It's at a high level where you're going to report independently your original research. And you need to have that willingness to continue improving your skills. That is part and parcel of what is required. Now, the last three ones in terms of what we have picked up internationally, the issue of self-motivation. We have talked about that earlier. Remember in the previous slides when we started, it's about having self-directed and being able to work independently. The other part also, once you are done with your doctoral qualification, it will be expected that you are able to work as a team. You can't be saying I'm Dr. So-and-so, Professor so-and-so. You are unable to work as independently. You are unable to work as a team. Then it means that you did not really study. And you need to learn to initiate ideas on your own. You don't have to wait for others. The part of leadership, part of what you are going through is also preparing you for leadership demonstrations in your workplace or in your research area. Now, the question that you need to ask you now, as we are slightly moving out of the doctorateness that we've talked about, but moving now towards what we want to focus on also, what is a PhD thesis? We have talked about this before, that this is the output of your work that needs to be presented in a form of an academic report. Others will probably know it as a doctoral thesis or either doctoral dissertation. But remember, it's about your novel or new original work that you are giving to us or giving to the society. Now, there are types of theses that are there that we are going to touch base on. You remember my previous slides, I said we're going to talk about the monograph or the article based. So we have two types, the one that is known as the monograph and the one that is nowadays known as the article based. Some they normally call it academic papers. Now, depending which style you are going to follow, that needs to be discussed with your supervisor, and also you can check within your college or the discipline. But within your college and supervisor, you can get more assistance on that. And the sooner you make that decision, the better. while you are still building your proposal, or before you start dwelling too much on what you're going to do. You need to reflect on that. Now, according to our guidelines, this is found on some of our policies and also our SOPs that are available on our website. Almost every college, I think, that I've seen has somewhere, a page that will refer you to this, or within the College of Graduate Studies. As you remember, the main thing is that whether you decide to go the issue of the monograph or the issue of article base, that is not an important issue. The issue is discuss that with your M&D office within your college and your supervisor to check what is required if you were to go either the route of article-based or either the monograph. The article-based system is an additional option that UNISA has provided, just like any other university has done now. So you have a choice whether you're going to go the monograph route or the article-based. And also where I won't say to you, go this route or go that route. It's between you and your supervisor within the college where you are in. But what is important is that, remember, the standards, whether you are writing as a monograph or either article-based, the standard is not compromised, the standard doesn't change. It doesn't mean that when you write with a monograph, it's simple or difficult, or when you write article-based, it's easier or so or tough. It doesn't matter. The standard remains the same. So, and your project, as I said, when you are in discussion with your supervisor or within your college, is the one that can then guide whether you are going to follow the article-based route or the monograph route. Now, let's try to dwell much on the monograph and also the paper-based. I've mentioned that, please, depending on your program and your discussion with the supervisor, you need to finalize on that, which one you're going to follow. But before making that decision, weigh the advantages and disadvantages of both. Whether your project will follow is best suited as a monograph or either as a article-based. And I'm going to say again, please check the regulations or the policies or the SOPs within your college. What are they reflecting on whether you're going for a monograph or article-based? Now, monograph, it's an old system that has been there. The Greek word refers to it as monos or single. As you are aware, although it's still nowadays it's happening more electronically. Before, when you go to the library, you will get a lot of dissertations or theses in the library of either maybe so-and-so, and that's but now the document now belongs only to one person. That was a student. So monographs have been there where you are, reflecting on a single subject or a topic or a theme. And normally the person who has written that is normally one person. Yes, you might have had supervisors, but that's your work as an individual. So monographs has always been like that. And in a lot of countries, although you might have went the route of monographs still had to be examined as any other qualification, still had to be defended, where you are presenting to a group of people to check your understanding. And that part of doctorateness also, there will be something that they can test and try to scale at that level. Now, the objectives, depending if this is what you go for. A monograph, as I said, is there to present information and scholarly research on a very specific topic. And normally, this is where you are focusing more on a topic, in detail. Where after that, if you want to publish, you are going to then have to try to prepare papers out of that. But at a monograph, you are normally offering a comprehensive analysis that goes beyond what might have been covered in a shorter article or an essay. So here you are dwelling too much on what you're working on. So in olden days, when we were doing a monograph, it was more of a detailed study or a detailed area that we're focusing on compared to what is happening nowadays in our areas. But remember, the standards have not changed. The standards are still there, but now with another option. Now, what I'm going to reflect on now is just some of the contents of a monograph, the what you can refer to as the old style of dissertations or thesis. Normally, you'll have your title, you'll have your abstract, you'll have your introduction, followed by your literature review, your methodology, followed by the results. Sometimes the result and discussion, some people will normally use to combine that, followed by your conclusions, references. So what we're going to do, we're going to try to dwell in each of them in brief, because we have done the same thing in other sessions. And the same contents that we have here, some of them will have the similar contents when we talk about the article-based. Now, in summary, the content of a PhD, this is in line with the monograph, but some, as I said, will still be the same when you talk about the article-based. The abstract, as you are all aware, this is just a brief summary. That is giving us, what you can call a snapshot of the study, something that you are putting there to try to attract the reader to know what is your study all about in few words. It sometimes can be about 500 or so, but normally about, let's say, plus minus 2 paragraphs, depending on the, the standards within your college or within a university. The next part is normally introduction. After the abstract, now you are introducing us to the study. Remember, the abstract just gave us what we can say, putting the cart before the horse. But now the introduction now gives us now the understanding of the entire study, the thesis itself. What is the paper all about? What is important about your field? And we are giving us also a brief part of methodology, as well as how the research is laid out. So it's more of an expanded abstract in a way, the part of introduction. Then you have the part of literature review. Remember, literature review, as you have said, and as other colleagues have said in other sessions, this is where now you are giving us a case for your new research by telling us what others have done before and what is it that you will cover. And you are giving, like I said, with the funnel, you are giving us the history of the topic that you are giving us, at present. And then what is it, how is it related to your work? The part of theory framework, remember, it's what, as I said, most people who are in the social sciences or so are the ones who are normally having theories, but that doesn't say in the sciences you will not have. But normally people in the like education, social sciences also, they normally have theoretical frameworks. Here, this is where now you are relating or explaining some assumptions related to your study. You are also, giving us the concepts that you might have used in your research. This is what you explained. Remember, in the proposal, you still have the same thing, but now here, you are now telling us how you have went through that process. The methods here, you are just detailing us how you collected your data, what was done. And also depending on, remember, on your research design, you are also now explaining further on what you have done. And remember, part of this, of the methods, you are giving them in detail. Remember, the high is a high level of doctoral level. You're not just giving things in short or cut short. You have to detail them in full. Then that will be followed by your results or your empirical data. Here, you are now giving us what you have found. Straightforward, in detail, and technical as possible. Some people, as I said, they sometimes combine the results and discussions. Some, they normally separate the results and have the discussion separately. With the discussion, now this is a bit of a tricky chapter, because remember, with your discussion now, you are now going to tell us that, yes, Charlie et al. Agrees with either with your study, or there's a difference or there's a contrast of what you have done with what you have done. And then what you come out now with, what is it that you are saying from your study? So you need to speak as a PhD versus any other student. Remember, we said this is now a high level. You're not just writing for the sake of writing. It's a high level, reflection that you're going to have here. So, and then after that, it's a part of conclusion. Here you are now taking us back. What you told us that you wanted to do, it means you are reflecting on the original plans, your goals, the intention that you had before. Were they reflected? Did you cover them? And how far did you cover them? This is where part you are concluding. Some studies might have, your recommendations. They might have appendices. Those are, other cosmetics that can be part of your study. Now, with this, as I said, the contents that you have covered base now, some of them will still be applicable when we talk about what is a paper-based article or research thesis. Now, this one, some people, they know it as a paper-based thesis. Some, they know it as a article collection. Some, they normally refer to it as a compendium of papers or so. But now, this one, there's a difference, because you are going to have a number of papers that you are structuring it you're structuring your thesis to be able to publish maybe 3 or 4 papers out of your study. Even from the monograph, you can still publish papers, but this one's now, when you submit, your chapters are in that format that will just reflect now. And also, your literature review can also be published as a review paper. It's up to you and your supervisor. Now, what are the benefits of paper-based? Firstly, paper-based, number one, it normally prepares you to have a good portfolio when you want to do for postdocs. The reason for this is because, remember, you are going to have publications, either 3 or 4, depending on how many chapters you have, that have already received a peer review before. Before your document goes for examination, some of your papers, maybe about 5 of them or so, will have been, peer reviewed before by the journal, the referees in the journal. So it means your work, in a way, it's more like one can say it's been examined twice, part of it. But that also, we need to be careful. It doesn't say just because you might have, let's say, you have 3 papers already accepted, that the examiners will just say, oh, the person have published, and then you just say you have passed. Or no, it doesn't work that way. The examiners will still go through your document, but at least they'll go with ease, because some of the papers are published in peer-reviewed papers. And remember, also, just because you have published, it does not automatically say now you have a qualification. Just because you have went through this process, you still have to go through examination process, and you still have to come and defend your work as well. Now, the contents of the article-based thesis. Remember the previous one, we said we have your title, your abstract, your introduction, literature review, your methods that you're going to use, followed by your results, your discussion, and then conclusions. In this one, the similar style we still have. You'll still have your title, you'll still have your abstract, you'll still have your introduction. Your literature review in this case can most likely be used or be submitted for publication, depending on how you prepare your literature review. And then also the chapter after that one, you are not writing now a chapter of materials and methods. Some people, they normally write that separately, but in this case, you are now writing your chapter as a possible article that you are going to submit as a publication, where you are going to have let's say chapter 2, or let's say call it chapter 3. Chapter 3 will then have its own introduction. It will have its own methods. It will have the results, the discussion, the conclusion. Because remember, that is a chapter on its own that you want to submit for publication. The same will happen to either your next chapter, which will be maybe your paper 2, maybe your paper 3 or paper 4, depending on how many research chapters you will have. But ideally, at your PhD level, you might probably have about 3 to 4, maybe some about 5, depending on your project itself. Then that will be followed by your conclusion and followed by recommendation and appendices, as we have said, similar to what we had before. Now, with this in mind, remember the following that are expected at UNISA. For your mini thesis, as you have said before, if you are doing a mini thesis at master's level, normally no manuscript is required to be submitted. At master's level, if it's a dissertation, 1 manuscript is expected. Now, at your level, 2 manuscripts should be submitted. Now, I'm saying, don't just go for 2 submissions. Also go for accepted and published, the better. As I said, some other universities, it's a mandate, that it's a requirement that when you go for your doctoral qualification, once you go even after examination, before you graduate, there must be proof that your papers are accepted. Some will say published. So I would emphasize that, yes, don't just go for just submitting. Let's try to go for publications. Now, the part that we have done before, as we are trying to move towards, wrapping up as well. We have done this part before. Remember, in another session, we were talking about how to defend your proposal, and also we touched base on how to defend your thesis. So I'm not going to dwell too much because we have talked about this, but I will just recap. Remember that Viva voce is a requirement at UNISA. You are going to need about 30 to 45 minutes, 30 minutes to present. You'll probably about another 30 to 45 minutes for Q&A that will come from the people who are part of the, the panel that will be there, including of your examiners. Now, some of the myths that you've talked about before, remember, the issue is not about answering all questions. If you don't know the questions that you have been asked when you are defending your study, you are always able to come back later or so, or find another way. But don't just stuck and start answering for the sake of answering. It's not about answering all questions. The defense is there to understand and for you to reflect the part I talked about, your doctorateness now, that you have brought something new to the field, and how are you able to defend that? It's all about that. And remember, examiners or the panel is not there to look for problems or holes. They care about you. They are there to help you with your study. And also, if your thesis defense is not successful, it's not the issue of studying all over again. There are some processes to be followed in case there are some challenges that you might have to have done well. UNISA also has regulations in terms of if things don't go well, how then do you follow up on some other things? Now, some of the checklists I'm just going to give as some of the tips. Make sure, because remember, it's your work. And as I said in some of the sessions, the part of AI becomes a problem if you were to use AI throughout without you reflecting the human aspect of that, the human touch. Know your thesis thoroughly and be able to summarize each chapter in few words, such that if somebody can ask you, let's say you're using article-based format, if they ask you about one of the chapters there, you must be able to give a brief overview, summarize it in few words. And remember, you need to have a continued work on your thesis. Even after you have submitted for examination, you can still look for some other things that you might have missed before you submitted for examination. And also, you need to keep up to date with relevant literature. Until the day you submit your final document, you still have to go for literature and look, because you might pick up something new as you are still reading. And remember, it's important that when you are working, understand the both theoretical and be able to practicalize your work so that others can understand the work you have done. Now, some of the things, my advice is that before you go for a defense also, try to have a mock Viva voce with your supervisor and also some of your colleagues also, where they can try to assist you, you know, kind of like a peer assessment in a way. And be able also to be able to explain your work to your friends or family in lay terms. You know, if somebody were to ask you, even if you are doing something that is too technical, you need to find a way of trying to explain that to somebody who might have not even went to school what you are dealing with. If you can't be able to explain your work in simple terms to a layman, you need to think twice about your work. Because remember, we talked about the societal impact of your research and your scholarship. So those are the things that you need to think about, especially when you present. You need to think about that. Also, if possible, when you know your examiners during that time, also look into their work so that the kind of questions that they might ask or what they asked you or they were concerned about during the examination period, it might give you an idea where they come from when you know their background. And as well as we said, check the university guidelines. You know, you are now at UNISA. Make sure, as we said, check within your college. What are the requirements? What are the guidelines when you're doing your Viva voce? Also, you can think about possible questions as well that might be asked by your examiners. And anyway, remember, the examiners are there. They are going to probably ask about what they asked before, what has always been there. They will not ask you something outside your work. It's within your work that they're going to ask about. Now, some of the tips that you can maybe just to add further is that you are also allowed at that point, remember, because it's a discussion engagement, that you can probably ask for clarity in case what they ask you do not understand. So that means something might not be clear to you. You are able to either say they must repeat or to get request clarity. And when you are presenting or you are there, take time to relax. Don't rush to respond, because sometimes when you are rushing to respond during the Viva voce, you might just even get the wrong answer. But take your time, understand the question so that you are able to reflect correctly. And remember, it's an issue of a dialogue with your examiners or the panel that is there. It's not just one way forward. It's a dialogue that is there. Be prepared to discuss your work in context of the other work that has been done in the field. Remember, at your level, we said you are now contributing something new. Part of your discussion will have to reflect now, how does your work fit into other work that has already been there? And if you don't know the answer, be able to say, yes, this one I'm not clear about, I don't understand. Simple as that. Don't try to, as I said, don't try to thumbsuck and come with something that is not there. And remember, you need to be prepared to express your opinions of your own work. This is your own work. You need to be able to express that. And remember, your study will always have the strong parts and the weaknesses. So it's essential that you reflect on both. Where were the weaknesses of my study and where was my strength of my study? So such that when you get some of the questions that are in line with that direction, you are able to reflect well on that one. Now, remember, examiners will always seek to find and discuss weaknesses, but not weaknesses in terms of poking holes, weaknesses in terms of building on what you have done. That means to strengthen your work in case the challenges that are there are sort of like leaving more questions. And also, what is important, do not interpret criticism or questions that are there as negative outcomes. Remember, every examiner, we are different people. We have different personalities, we have different styles, and we have different levels of experience. So every examiner will ask based on their experience, their style, or whatever. So all those things, depending on those personalities, those should not disturb you. But remember, the focus is just for you to be there, to not to be confrontational. Even if they may ask you something that you think is a bit personal, you reflect as a professional, you answer as a professional person. Remember, we're talking about the doctorateness of the studies now, of yourself. This is where you also have to reflect that even if something might be something that is out of line, how do you reflect? You don't take offense when you respond. You respond with integrity, ethically so, and with professionalism. Important, always be relaxed, thoughtful, non-confrontational, as we have said. And also remember, there will always be a neutral chair there. A neutral person who will be there is a chair that will be there, such that if something is not in order, they will be able to attend to that. And there are rules and regulations within UNISA that you can get from your college that reflect the do's and don'ts during this process. So in simple terms, this is not a point where you need to panic. You need to relax because you have done your study. Now, some of the expected contents when you defend your oral defense, what you need to reflect on. What is important? The following have to be there. You need to cover your title, your introduction and background in brief, your problem statement, objectives, methods that you have used, the results, and your discussion in brief, as well as your conclusion. Now, remember, as I said before, there are some SOPs within UNISA that you can also reflect on from your website that you need to check on. You need to reflect also on the originality of your work, the applications and the avenues for further research. Those are the kind of things that you need to work on. Now, also, what is important, there might be some things that your examiners have picked up when you submitted. You also need to reflect on that. How were those attended to that the examiners have mentioned? Now, in brief, as I said, because we have went through this process, I'll just recap quickly. Your title page will just reflect about your details. That's your slide that will have the first slide. The second slide is mainly focusing on the introduction. Remember, the introduction we just said is just there to introduce now to the panel, your study, your research questions, the importance of your study, your objectives. That slide will just focus on those aspects. Then your literature review slide will just focus mainly on brief, relevant and current research that is close to your topic, what you have worked on. That is what you're focusing on. The theories that might have been applied that you worked on in terms of your study. Some of the areas that are weaknesses within the area of research also. The methods that we have used, you just provide a slide or two that will reflect on this in line, remember, with your theoretical frameworks or your study design. This is where you are now giving us whether was it qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods, the population that you have used, the areas, the study area. This is where you are giving us, just in brief. Remember, you are presenting your project in about 15 to 20 slides, not more than that. Now, also the results. This is where it's more critical now. You are reflecting about your results now. This one, you are now giving us the understanding of what you have discovered during your research. You are reflecting the stats part if you have done some stats on your work, your final results and your analysis. You are giving us now the overall description of the data that you collected. So what is significant about your data? What is important from your data? What is that you can talk about on your data? The discussion slide, in line with your results. You are now, remember, as I said before, you are now telling us, is your study in line with other studies or not? You are now comparing with other studies. So the slide that is here, maybe one or two slides, will reflect on that aspect. How are your findings, comparing with others? Whatever challenge that you might have picked up, something new or something different, if your study is unusual or in line, this is where you are now telling us, comparing with other studies. The conclusion slide is straightforward. As you have said, you are reflecting back on your objectives, the research questions, to check whether have those been answered. This is what you talk about. Some people, they will normally reflect on recommendations on this one. Now, some of the last slides, which are straightforward, it's about the future work, as you have talked about. If there's any that you have picked up, the acknowledgement slide, and then from there, it's just the slide where you are going to then allow the audience to ask questions. Now, what is important also, please have a reference slide where you are referencing what you have presented, or some of the parts where you are reflecting references in your literature also. You need to reflect on that. And the style that you have used, remember, if you have used either Harvard or whatever style, APA or so, you need to standardize throughout. Then last part, the other slide, you can see that your contact details that are there, but everybody who will be there will know you, but it's always important to have that as well. Now, some of the examiners some of the questions that you can ask, this is part and parcel of what is already available on our website in terms of the policies or the SOPs that are there. If there are some clarity that is required, the examiners will ask that over and above what they might have asked. Whatever claims that you might have made, they might want more clarity. If there are any gaps that they might pick up or incomplete discussions, they might ask on that. Or areas that might require more clarity, they will talk about things like that. They might ask things like that. What is also important, they can also ask, as you have said, when you reflect on your defense, your contribution to science or the field that you are in, that needs to be reflected. If they don't pick it up, they will ask about that to say, but what is it that you are contributing to the body of knowledge? And how is your study related to what has been there in literature? And also some of the possible questions, what were your challenges in your study? What have you learned? It might look like it's more of a question that might not be there, but they can ask so that to try to see as part of the attribute you talked about. When you reflect, you are going to reflect now the doctrine as part of that. And if your methods or the data analysis was not clear, they can ask things like that as well. We talked about the issue of future research. Reflect on that out of your project, what are the future projects that you can think, or the studies that you can think of there? Some of the limitations of your study, you need to reflect on that as well, and as well as the major achievements. Now, with that, as we are concluding, I'm just reflecting here from Yazani and Shoko. In 2018, they published what we call the conceptual model for doctorateness. Remember, we started with the part of talking about what is this concept of doctorateness, and we reflected also on the attributes, you know, of in terms of CHE and different universities. I said within the country or internationally, they will probably over and above the attributes they have. They might have some of the student values or so over and above that is there. Now, what is important? When you start as a candidate, you are starting from the inputs. As a candidate, as a student, in terms of your personality, your commitment, your prior studies. But the process now that we talked about, remember we talked about the process and the product as part of your study. There are going to be some developments that are going to be there. Their professional experience, their socializing, those are part of your process. What you are learning as part of the doctorateness. Then the product. Either you are going to graduate, either as a tertiary degree, those are the things. But remember, this is the highest qualification worldwide. After doctorate, you cannot get another doctorate. This is the NQF level 10. That is the last one. We don't have any NQF level 11. The only thing that you can do, either you're going to be a postdoc after that, or either you go as an academic to become a professor or so, but there's no other qualification after doctorate. You are done, unless you're going to start under something new at lower NQF levels. Now, what is important also, your original contribution. You're going to have peers, you're going to publish your work, you're going to have conceptualization of what you have done, your thinking skills, mastering the methods or the disciplines, your research competence, your own identity as a doctoral candidate. These are some of the part and parcel of the products. Now, the outcome here is your personal growth. You are also going to be in a part of the, your field area, your community, depending whether you're in the social sciences or in the hard sciences or so, you're going to be part of a community. And also, you are going to be an independent person, the scholarship part that we talked about. And the impact of that, remember, your research, your project, it might be impacting the society or the economy or the human or capital development, depending on where the impact is, but it's going to be about your dad. Now, that is the last slide. Remember, your time in the doctoral program is a unique experience, so enjoy it. So from my side, I'll just say good luck and make us proud with your work. Let me just put in my camera and check if there are questions. I'm gonna check here. Okay, I see Solomon here saying, thank you, Prof. In order to reduce number of slides during thesis defense, can you display different points on one slide? Solomon, when you are at a defense level, the last time I think we talked about at least try to have about 17 to 20 slides, but remember, you are doing this in line with your supervisor, and probably within your colleagues, they might also advise that avoid having too many slides. Remember, you only have 30 minutes to present, and you want to reflect your entire study so that it's clear you are reflecting on, some of the challenges that you might have picked up, what examiners might have picked up as well. So my advice would be, try not to have too many things in one slide. Yes, if you have space on a slide, you can have some, but don't have your slide too congested. That would be my advice. I'm just going to go down to see if there are any other comments. I don't see any other comments. I think with that, colleagues, because I don't see any other comments, I only see one from Solomon. Allow me then to thank you for being with us today, for the discussion of today. So I just want to wish you all the best, and then just say goodbye and enjoy the remaining part of winter, which is, I think they said it's going to be a warm winter. So let's continue enjoying winter this time. Thank you and goodbye, colleagues.